Hi parents, it's Kim. We're going to do another behavior video. This time it's parental choice. I had a family who asked me to do more consequences beyond timeout. So what I did was, I'll show you my cheat sheet. So I wrote everything out so that I wouldn't hopefully forget to tell you anything. I will first tell you though, that is my late dog, Lucy. Yes, we have a giant picture of her. So she's going to be looming over the session because this is the best place I found to do this. And I will tell you, I'm actually wearing makeup today, and I did my hair only because, and it was so funny to me, I wasn't offended at all, but I got 2 comments from people who aren't on my caseload. Good job, bro, and way to go, dude. So I was like, oh my God, do I look like a bro or a dude? I even wrote that back, like laughing. My husband and I were laughing over it. So I just wanted to prove I am a female. Hopefully I look like one today. And I put on my makeup to show you I am, in fact, Mrs. Kim. So let's get on with it, shall we? Okay, consequences. You're going to see me looking at my paper so that I don't forget any of them for you. Now, consequences, I don't know if you know this, but we can have positive consequences. I might have mentioned it in the last video. So that's what we always want to concentrate on first, our positive consequences. Because remember, they don't understand the difference between positive and negative attention at this age usually. So whether you're yelling in their face, which I know you would never do, or you're hugging them, it's exactly the same thing to them. They've got your attention. They've got you like that. So we do positive consequences too, to encourage them to seek out the attention in a positive way. So let's go through those first. We have talked about them. So the first one is verbal and physical praise for anything they do right. So I don't care if they see a piece of paper on the floor and just pick it up and maybe put it in the trash or hand it to you. I don't care how small it is, what they do right. You want to praise them. And I don't just mean like, good job, John. I mean like over celebrating, because remember, they're toddlers and preschoolers and their emotions are bigger. So our responses in the positive realm are bigger for them. So they pick up that piece of paper off the floor for you and they throw it away and you go, great job for throwing away that piece of paper. Woo! I'm so proud of you. Give me a hug. Yeah, it's obnoxious. It's totally obnoxious. But it's usually what they respond to. I mean, I have obviously had a few kids who were shyer and were quiet, and then I was more quiet, which is not usual for me. Yeah, so you know your child the best and how you're going to be able to give them that verbal and physical praise. That's a consequence that lasts all day. You can use it anytime, anywhere. And like I said, catch them doing even the smallest thing. But the biggest thing to remember is to really celebrate it, because you want them to crave that. You want them to crave that positive attention that they're going to get from you. So that is my first piece of advice, is definite physical and verbal praise for everything. And also, just like when we say no, I want you to put a directive with it. So say they did pick up that piece of paper. Good job picking up that piece of paper. Be very specific, because just like with the, with the no's, we're very specific. So they know what it was they did wrong. Well, guess what? Now we want them to know what it was they did right, so that hopefully they'll start remembering those things that they did right, appropriate behavior, and do them again. So like our hope would be like, okay, he picks up the paper. We do the big woohoo, you're awesomer than any other kid in the world. And then the next day he sees another piece of paper and he's going to crave that over celebrating, hopefully, or the hugging and snuggling, whatever is their language of love. And that is actually a really great training that I got to go to, the language of love. But yeah, so figure out what it is for them so that tomorrow when they see that, they'll pick it up and they'll wait for you to really over celebrate it. I know it's obnoxious and I know that it doesn't feel right, much like the caveman speak of the no, where we take off all the endings and stuff and we just say no hit. It's not natural. You really have to train yourself to do it. But I really feel that it's important. My dad has this old saying that, you say something positive to your child. And sorry, there's this curl. It's making me mental. That's why I don't ever wear my hair down. So you say something positive to your child and that builds them up. Well, for everything negative you say to your child, my dad says it takes 100 attaboys, like attaboy or attagirl, to undo the negative that you did. So we're always concentrating on what they do appropriately. And then in those times too, when it's just chill in the day, nothing's happening, I'm also reminding them, like I'll sit there, say we're playing, and I'll be like, I really like the way that your hands are so gentle with me, or I really like the way that you're not sitting in a W. I'm sure you've all seen that W sitting with the feet out. By the way, don't let them sit like that. It can cause hip dysplasia and knee. I can't remember the exact term, but later in life, they can have hip dysplasia. So always correct that W sitting. It literally looks like a W. So your kid is sitting and instead of their legs being tucked under their legs, they're out to the side. So correct that. But anyway, sorry, that was off track, but I just thought of it. So like if you like the way they're sitting, I love the way you're sitting there so quietly. I love the way that you used kind hands. And then, you can demonstrate it even like, oh, that was so nice. You were so kind. Whatever your buzzword is that your child understands. My children in our house, we use kindness. That's our big thing. Our word. Negatives, I mean, my kids are at a point where I can really have a long talk or have a long lecture with them if they need one as well. So use what your child is comfortable with. If you know that they don't like to be hugged or touched, just celebrate it. And you don't have to hug them. You don't have to try and give them a high five. Although, I don't know, high fives might be over and Miss Kim might have to go to the fist bump that I hate. The only reason I hate it is I like to wear rings. And so I don't ever want to bruise a little one with my rings. Or, elbow to elbow like we're doing these days. So whatever their language of love is, use it. So another positive reward is a treat. A treat can be anything. A treat can be time together. A treat can be playing their favorite game, watching their favorite show. I guess I shouldn't say it's a treat. It's a reward. It's really a reward. And reward systems can be tricky because you have to slowly phase out those, what we call tangible rewards. So tangible means that you can hold it and touch it or see it, like TV, even though you can't hold TV in the palm of your hand, I would consider that a tangible reward. We use that reward with my son, actually. When he gets his schoolwork done, he earns a certain amount of TV time. So like another tangible reward would be candy, like an M&M, whatever your kid likes the most. I will tell you though, for these types of rewards, you can only give them as the reward for or as a reward. So like say your child loves M&Ms and you want to give them an M&M when they do something correctly. You can't give them M&Ms any other time. Otherwise, they will satiate, which means it won't mean anything to them anymore. So if you choose a tangible reward, you know, just be aware of that. Like, so if it's a show that they like, I don't even know any of the little kid shows anymore except Sesame Street because that's been on since 1969. You can't watch it any other time. It's just the reward for the behavior. Now, what is the difference between a bribe and a reward? It's actually quite easy to tell the difference. A bribe is something that you give at the beginning to try and entice them to do what you want them to do. The problem with a bribe is with toddlers, well, with anybody really, they don't have to follow through. You've already given them the reward before they even did what you wanted them to do. So we don't give it at the beginning. That's just, you know, like I said, because then they could be like, I already got the M&M. See ya. So yeah, I never give it at the beginning. That is a bribe. So give it at the end as a reward. You can always show it to them at the beginning. Like, remember, you're getting these M&Ms, or remember, we're playing Chutes and Ladders after, if you're going to do those types of rewards. Show it to them at the beginning, tell it to them. But don't give it, okay? Don't give it until the job is done. That is the rule, so that they will follow through with things. Also, those tangibles like M&Ms and shows and such, we really have to phase those out. So it's kind of harder to use those tangible rewards because eventually, you know, I always say my job, although I work with toddlers and sometimes 3 years old, my job is to get them ready for kindergarten. I know that they're not looking towards kindergarten yet, parents and such, but that is my goal. So it doesn't matter if I get an infant on my caseload or 3-year-old on my caseload. My goal that I'm looking for is to get this child ready for kindergarten, which is, you know, sometimes their first school experience at all. So in kindergarten and up, in kindergarten, they might give tangible rewards, you know, but you're going to get to a certain age where they don't do that anymore. You know, maybe you'll get a star on your test, or like we said, a way to go, I'm proud of you. But yeah, my son is in 5th right now, and they get class rewards. So everybody in the class has to earn it, which is hard if you think of that in a class of over 20 kids. So that's how they deal with tangible rewards in the 5th grade, is that everybody has to hit the goal. But yeah, you want to take away those tangible rewards eventually. And you don't just want to take them away. You need to phase them out. So like instead of one M&M every single time, well, then it would be every other time. And then a week after that, it would be every 2 days. So that's really a process. So before you implement a tangible reward, make sure you're ready for the phasing out process. And sometimes that can be difficult because they're like, where's my M&M? And you're like, no, you'll get one the next time. And it can start behaviors, I will be honest with you, if you choose a tangible. That's why, like in therapy, I used to give out stickers. If I have them with me for like anything that's going on, I'll give them, but I don't bring them anymore. I don't bring any kind of tangible, there we go, reward at all. It's just you get as much verbal and physical praise as you want during my session. And that's what I'll give you. Sometimes like near maybe a holiday or whatever, I might give them something, but it's not as a reward. It's just a little, hey, Miss Kim's thinking about you. Okay, so we covered the positive consequences. So all a consequence is you make a choice and then something happens. So it's cause and effect, really. So I do something positive, I get one of those positive rewards. So you see that it's a cause and an effect. It also works the same way with negative behaviors, cause and effect. I hit someone and the effect is I get a consequence. So, okay, we talked about no. No is actually a consequence for sure, because you make that like stern face and you use a little bit louder voice, which is more controlled. Remember, everything is controlled. You have to stay in control of your emotions, because their emotions might go out of control when you give these consequences. So you never give them in anger. You might feel angry. Totally. Yes, you can feel it, but don't show it to them. Like we talked about in our last video, don't put them down just a little too hard for timeout to make a point. That's just you losing it. Have I lost it? For sure. Yes, 100 times. With my own kids. It's easier with the kids that I see, with your kids, because there are certain things I cannot do. I can't lose it with your kids. Otherwise, I'm out of a job. But with my own kids, for sure. I lost it yesterday and I had to apologize to my son. I just got frustrated, and it was just one last question, unfortunately, and he was the one to ask it. So, but I did apologize to him. I will say that. So, okay. So now that we've got that covered, no is a consequence. No hit, no touch, no whatever it is. It's to try and get them to stop immediately what they're doing, with the stern face, with the louder, not yelling, just a louder, stern voice. It's meant to kind of like shock them out of what they're doing. So that's why we use the stern face and the stern voice, in the hopes that'll be it, right? Wouldn't that be great if that's all we had to say was no? Some children, all you have to say is no. Some children, that's not it. So the next level I would go to after just saying no is, we've talked a little bit about proximity. Basically, all proximity is moving closer to the child, or moving them closer to you. Now, when I do it as a low-level behavioral intervention, I just move up next to them, and I don't say anything. Or I'll just kind of like put my hand on their shoulder, or, I'm always touching the toddlers. It's a form of communication with toddlers. So I might even just I put my hand on their arm, on their leg, give them a little squeeze, like, I'm here, you can do this. So that's the way that I use proximity, when I'm doing low-level behavioral intervention. When I use it as a consequence, generally speaking, it's a child who is being very defiant with me, and I can see them maybe getting ready for some higher level behaviors. So I first tell them, I say, if you keep doing that, you're going to have to sit with Miss Kim. And it's like the biggest punishment to have to sit with me. I call myself Mean Miss Kim because my job, I do have to be mean. Well, I feel I'm being mean, but I'm not. I'm doing actual behavioral consequences that are appropriate. It's just, I know the kids perceive me as mean in the moment. And remember too, we want that healthy fear, meaning they see me come in for a session and they're like, oh, I'm just not gonna bother with behaviors while she's here because I know that she's gonna give me a consequence. That's a healthy fear. We never, never, never want that unhealthy fear of them cowering in the corner, afraid of Miss Kim. No. I didn't call myself mean, Miss Kim. Somebody else called me mean, and I just took it on. Yes, I have been fired from kids because I am mean. I'll let a kid cry, and I won't give in to them. I'll put them on my lap, give them a little consequence. So, yep, I have been fired from cases for being mean, Miss Kim. So I just decided to take on the name myself. So that's who I am when I do these things. So I warn them first, if you continue, I'm going to put you on my lap. Usually, the kids try it again. So they're usually then on my lap, which they do not like. Now, this is going to sound horrible. And I think I said it in the last video, but I want to reiterate it. And this does sound very mean and horrible. If they're crying, it means it's working. If they're whining, it means it's working. If they're upset or show any kind of emotion on their face, it's working. So I know that sounds very harsh, but you want to pick a consequence that means something to them. And if they're just like sitting there on your lap, like it's a break, like, woohoo, I get to sit with Miss Kim, which usually is not the case. But I wish that were the case. But yeah, so you want it to make an effect. So usually what happens is I put the child on my lap, and they immediately start, crying or making sounds in some way, or looking at their parent who's directly across from them, like, save me, save me. And I directly say to them, I say, we're going to do one thing with Miss Kim while you're sitting on my lap, and then you can go back over either to the floor or to your parent who's sitting across from me. That's it. You got to do this one thing. So that's a consequence in and of itself. Have I had to hand over hand do the thing with the child? Yes, 100 times. While they're screaming at me? Yes, 100 times. Because remember, crying, screaming, whining is all their way of just saying no. Usually they will do what I want them to do while they're crying. Now, this doesn't mean that I have traumatized them. It just means that they're complaining while they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then I can put them across from me again when we're done. And 9 times out of 10, they still will engage in the activity with me. But also, the second I put them down across from me or with their mom, it's over. Like that it is a little bit of a negative interaction, right? I mean, you're putting them on your lap, and because they haven't been engaging in age-appropriate behaviors, so it's a little bit of a negative interaction. So the second the child does the thing and goes back, across from me or with their mother, wherever it is, I immediately become that positive person again, because that's over. That is done. We had that consequence. We don't need to bring it up again, except, like I said, if then you're doing things positively and say the child hit you, and I just say, oh, I love the way that you are using such kind hands. So that's when we're going to add that in. So when the consequence is over, it's over. The circumstance is over. Will it happen again? Probably. That's how I find it. Obviously in the beginning when you start this, it happens again, and then they're back on my lap again, and it's a cycle. But that doesn't mean that it's not working. Okay. So we talked about the positive rewards. We talked about saying no, proximity. Now, timeout, we talked about at great length. So I don't feel like I have to go over that with you, but I will tell you that if you go on the road, meaning you go to somebody else's house, you go to the mall, wherever, these behavioral tools follow you. So if they're not acting age appropriately behaviorally when they're out, and it's something that you would say no to, do it. Or if it's something that you would put them on your lap for, find a place to sit down, do it. Time out, same thing. I have little plastic circles. I got them on Amazon. They're for like a group of kids. I actually got them for my group because the kids weren't sitting on the rug. So I gave them, it's a tangible. That spot is a tangible. They can see it, they can feel it, they sit on it. So I carry one of those with me. So when I do community outings with my families of kids who have some behaviors, I bring one with me. During therapy time, I bring two, one for me, one for them. So bring your behavioral toolbox, right? We were talking about toolbox. Bring it with you. Because same rules apply no matter where you are. Now, if they're with a grandparent, a family member, a family friend, you can't make them follow through with it. You can't. That's their decision if they want to. I will tell you, when I think I told this story maybe, when I gave my children timeouts at my parents' house, it was in the kitchen, same like at our house. My mom would have every excuse of why she needed to be in the kitchen at that very moment. Now, granted, my kids were only like 2 years old, 3 years old, whatever. And she suddenly had to be in the kitchen. It drove me insane. And I realized there's nothing I can do about that. I can have the rules myself, but I can't force someone else to have the rules. So that's just the way it works. But kids will come to understand that with you, they have to toe the line. They might have different rules at, even another parent's house. I talk to a lot of families who the mom and dad don't live together. And the other parent chooses not to follow the behavioral plan. And that's okay, because like I said, there's nothing you can do about that. But the second your child comes back to you, you start immediately from the second they walk in the door, and you make them know that this is how it is at my house. Or coming back from a grandparent who's fun, anybody who doesn't have the same set of rules as you do. When you get that child back at home, you set those rules from the second you walk in the door. To make it clear that that's great, you had fun there, and I want you to have fun at home, but we have rules at home. So, okay, let's move to the next one then, because we did timeout. Oh, so much timeout. Taking something away. They're old enough to take something away. This, again, will sound very mean. When you take something away, make sure it's something that means something to them. Because if you take away something that doesn't mean anything to them, they're like, who cares? And this is the meanest part about it. You have to put it somewhere where they can see it as a reminder. So, on top of the refrigerator is a great place. Definitely a place they can't get it. I used to put things on the mantle. Anything high, like I said, where they can't get it. Refrigerator and the mantle were two places where we put it. I'm sure that you have places in your house as well. Why do we want them to see it? That sounds so incredibly mean. Why? Why would we be mean to our child? We want them to see it as a reminder of, you don't do that. You're not going to hit me across the face. So that's a consequence that you can choose. Now, there are two schools of thought on that as well. Do you give it back? One school of thought will say yes. One school of thought will say no, but not permanently no, but like no until the next day. Now, for me, it depends on what stage in the behavioral planning you're in. If you're at the very beginning, you take it away for a specific period of time that you've established. You know, let them have the tantrum if they're going to have it, looking at the object. Remember, we're learning to cope, so let them have the tantrum if they're looking at that object and feel it. And then if you see that their behavior has changed and is more positive, you can see, or you can say to them, I'm going to give this back to you now because I like the way that you changed your hitting hands, stomping feet, scratching nails, whatever the behavior was. You can also tell them when you take it away, I'm going to put this up here and you can earn it back by doing the right thing. Now, you'll have to pare it down, the language, and figure out a way to say it to your child that they understand. I work with children with speech delays usually. I think every child I see gets speech. So receptively is what you understand. So most of the kiddos that I work with have a receptive delay as well as that expressive delay. So they're not understanding properly the language that they should be for their age range. So, I'll pare it down and, just say, like I'll put it up and then I'll say, when you have kind hands, you get it back. And I don't say it in a stern voice. That one I say in a kind voice because I want to show them that they have to have a positive behavior to earn it back. So use that more positive voice when you're putting it up wherever you can. You can have it back when you have kind hands, or you can even use the no part that you already told them. I'm still holding it up there, I guess. You can have the kind hands. No, you can have this back when no hit. So you can put it in that kind of spin too. So that you're going to want to say in a more positive way, but you've already said the no hit or whatever. So, you had that that harsher voice, not harsher because that makes it sound like you're yelling, just that that raised voice, but not a yell. So you've said that already, so say that in a positive way. Now, will they probably have a tantrum? Yeah, probably. And if they're safe, like we talked about, walk away, but make sure that you can hear them. And you can always look, say, over a shoulder, over, around a little doorway, and peek and see how they're doing for their tantrum. So always make sure they're safe for those tantrums, okay? And then after that tantrum is the time to talk to them in a positive way and see if they're ready to have it back. And that consequence, it's all up to you how long you take it away. Like I said, some people say give it back immediately. Some people say don't give it back till the next day. I want you to gauge what that is for your child. If it's a behavior that just keeps and keeps and keeps and keeps and keeps on happening, I would keep it up there for a much longer period of time. If it's just to make a point, like when my kids would fight over something, I would just take it away just for like 10 minutes. And now remember, my kids are 7 years apart. So why are they fighting over something? I don't know. But I would give it back and say, if you can use it together, then you can do it. TV is a big thing with them because, an 11-year-old and an 18-year-old aren't really enjoying the same show. So that's an easy one. I'll just turn off the TV and be like, when you guys can decide on a show you can watch together, then you can watch TV. So, yeah. Okay, the next one is... Oh, this is one I have to give Brady's family half the credit for this one. So when I do behavioral therapy, I play with the child a little bit, but it's mainly talking to the parents and brainstorming. And we brainstorm this together. I'm sure it's already a thing. Uh, I'm sure we didn't make it up. I'm sure we didn't think of it, but we in our little circle we thought of this called and we even named it. I wanted to name it like the Brady circumstance, but I figured I should name it something that's actual behavioral. So we ended up calling it a circumstantial consequence. And what did we mean by that? Well, Brady didn't really have anything that meant anything to him to take away. Timeouts, he could have cared less. So we didn't find something for him. So what we came up with was, in the moment, things meant something to him. So if he I love that family. They love Star Wars. So they even had the little Star Wars stickers on the back of their car for each of them. It was adorable. So he was super into Star Wars. So, if he was playing with Star Wars that day and he did whatever Brady did, his parents would take away, say, his lightsaber, or, and yes, it's okay for little ones to have those kinds of things. But the second that they start using it as a weapon on you or their siblings or anybody else, yeah, you do need to take it away for a while. And those are the kind of toys you kind of try out. Like, I got like a foam sword for my son. My daughter, she really didn't have any issues. My husband could bring home anything and she would play safely with it. But you try those little things like a lightsaber, a foam sword, whatever. So it was circumstantial. We would take it away from Brady, or if he was enjoying an activity that we were doing, we would clean up the activity and be done with it. That really did affect him. So I was really excited about that we were able to come up with something for him. So that's all it is. You're in a circumstance, and the circumstance, you take that. Or you're in a circumstance, say you're in Walmart and not in a time when I know you're doing your weekly grocery shopping and you just have to get through it. And so you give your kids something. Like, I get that. You got to get that done. That's always a pain in the butt. My kids used to get a bagel that I paid for. I don't want you to think that I stole the bagel. We would go to the bagel. They pick out a bagel. The reason I chose a bagel, it takes forever to eat. And then they got to have either a book or a piece of fruit as a reward at the end. But the bagel, yeah, that was something just to keep them busy. So on those shopping trips, I totally get it. Like, you just got to motor through. But so the consequence, say you go into Walmart to look at, I don't know, sandboxes, because John really wants a sandbox. Well, John starts acting up in Walmart, right? And you're looking at the sandbox. Guess what? You don't get the sandbox. We're going home. So that's another circumstantial consequence. Let's see. I wrote some things. I wrote some things down so I wouldn't forget. The taking away is a circumstantial consequence. Whatever. It's whatever. If you're taking away something in the moment that they like, it's a circumstantial consequence. If you're just taking away like their favorite train because it's their favorite, then it's just taking something away. And you take away their reward if they were going to get a reward. Like I said, they didn't get the sandbox. This is another interesting circumstantial one. This one worked with my daughter and my son so well. And my parents actually had a story to go with this one. They did it to my sister. I love that story. But anyway, so what are we talking about? So if you're at the table, another circumstantial consequence is my kids either sat in the high chair or a youth chair. Youth chair is just a high chair without the tray that you push up to the table. It's higher, but it's a regular chair. They're just eating at the table in a youth chair so that they can sit with you. And we always, even when we had the high chair, they were right up at the table with us. So if they would start to act up during mealtime, I would literally take their high chair or their youth chair and I would turn them the other way, which would usually end up in a tantrum, but they were safe. They were in their high chair, strapped in, and even the youth chair. We only had the youth chair for my son. My daughter went to a booster seat on the chair, but he wasn't safe enough for that. So we actually had, like, those click belts. We just bought one and we put it, there were like spindles in the youth chair, and we put it around, and we'd always, always strap that kid in because he's the one who you heard had the skull fracture. And Miss Kim, a story about Miss Kim, my parents took me to see Superman, and I was still in a high chair. And apparently, I still remember it. I was at the table, and this was before high chairs. They didn't have any seat belts or whatever. Like, come on, in the 70s. So I stood up in my high chair, and I said, I still remember it as plain as day, "Look at me, hi, Superman." And I jumped out of my high chair because I thought I could fly, and I ended up breaking my collarbone. So that's another reason that we put, always be cautious. I always am cautious. John taught me that. So he was strapped into his youth chair, so he was safe. So I would literally turn them the opposite way so that they couldn't join in on, our interactions. That worked really, really well. Yes, they would cry. I know that sounds so mean. Occasionally there would be a good, like tantrumish kind of thing. And John in the youth chair was never out of my reach. Well, you can't see me reaching. So like about this far, because I knew him and I knew he was going to somehow push himself over and hurt himself. So I had my hand on the back of the youth chair, like that. So like, here's the youth chair, so that he couldn't push it over or knock it back or whatever. I had a good hand on it. But of course, we're going ahead and we're talking and eating, and we're really making a big deal of it so that they can really feel the pain of, oh, wow, I don't get to join my family. Like, ooh, I better get myself together. And it worked. Madison, did it too. I hate to say I don't remember her needing it a ton. There were a few times. John, he really... he liked to test us at the dinner table because it's a disruption, right? We're all here together and I can get attention, negative attention, because I don't know the difference between positive and negative, and it's just getting a reaction. So we took the reaction away and we just turned them around, and that was a great consequence. So as long as they're safe, if you're in a store and they're in the seat, right? I have a lot of kids who like to kick their moms or hit their moms while their mom is trying to push that. So that consequence is more of a planned ignoring consequence. But again, it's circumstantial because you're in a store. That's the 3 foot away consequence. I literally push them 3 feet away and I stand there. Now, I did this with John. John didn't do this much. My kids didn't do this too much. I think John, it took one time. And I don't really remember Madison doing it. She liked being out. But the kiddos that I work with, so all of a sudden feet start flying or slaps start coming because we didn't put in the Batman figurine that we just saw, And I mean, when I do behavior training in the community too, I will purposely take them down the toy aisle because, you have to desensitize your kids to these things, and you can't get them something every time. They can't always have a tangible reward because that's not life, right? So in school, after probably, they get tangible rewards, I told you, but it's like a pizza party and all the kids have to have earned it, So there are tangible rewards in school, but not like when you're a toddler and when you're at home. So that's why I kind of try to stay away from the tangible rewards. But anyway, yeah, so I literally push the kid 3 feet away from me, and I ignore them until they stop. I will tell them, always, again, if they're having that major tantrum in the, I'm sorry you're mad. I'm sorry you're mad. I'm sorry you're mad. I'm sorry you're mad. 500 times until they're done. And then they calm down. But again, I'm not looking at them and I'm not talking to them. So it's both. It's circumstantial and it's a planned ignoring. I don't leave the store. Because unless it's like the sandbox incident, like we just talked about, that I made up. We had you leave the store then because they started acting up when you were buying something specifically for them. So you just take it and leave. Or not take it, you leave it and leave. But like if they're in a cart and you're trying to get through a shopping trip with them, you have to start training them. So you can't just get up and leave. So yep, 3 feet away. Are you going to get looks? Oh, absolutely. Now my kids are older, but yeah, people used to look at me all the time as John was tantruming on the floor. People look at me all the time when I go out into the community with parents, and you can use my answer if they look at you in a weird way or say something, which I think is just first of all, mind your own business. I mean, if you see someone, obviously disciplining their child in an inappropriate way, in a corporal punishment way, please feel free to school them and say that's really not going to make a difference in this situation. But if you see, a person who's just dealing with a tantrum, dealing with that kid who's getting the timeouts in front of the Gap, John Weldon, give them a little bit of support. But if they look at you like that, you can give them my answer of, I am trying to teach this child how to act in the community. How is you looking at me, or how is you saying that helping me help this child? I also get a lot of reactions because I am a therapist who will help train a child with one of those backpacks that has, the handle on it, that you can hold. People say the meanest things when they see me with the kids with the backpacks. I don't do the one on the wrist because you can really hurt a wrist. Either they yank too hard because they're going that way and you're trying to go the other way, or sometimes by accident we just yank. I mean, we don't mean to. So I worry about that. So if you are going to try something like that to train your child in a store or in the mall to stay with you and stay next to you, look for the backpack ones, or just the little plush ones. I have one in my car right now. I wish I had brought it in, but I didn't think to, that I'm using with a little girl. We're preparing her for outings. Well, none of us can do outings, but it's got 2 straps that click, like lock and click, but it's just a little unicorn. So I'm working with her during sessions. I put the unicorn on her. She hates it. She has some sensory needs. She feels it the whole time. But so every time I try to work with her with it a little bit longer so that when we do go out, her parents, concern is she runs away from them. And that is dangerous. She's little. Little. And you can hide anywhere. I used to be one of those kids who would hide in the rack of clothes and make my mother crazy. So I am for those, but only in training your child to stay next to you. It is not something that you want to use long term unless your child just isn't kind of getting it and needs more training. They are for training really only once your child is able to handle holding your hand or walk next to you. You don't need it, so don't wear it. If your child enjoys it, just take the lead part off of it because they snap on and snap off. Because then that gives them that little reminder of the hug from the backpack to just stay with you or stay near you. But yeah, that is not just something I do lightly. I only use those for training. I just don't, for myself, I just don't feel like that's something that I would want to put on my child every single time if they can walk next to me. Like, why? Because that's our goal, right? Is to make them independent. So, okay, so we went through the circumstantial ones. I'm going to just briefly touch on yelling and corporal punishment. Yelling, we've talked about this. That's meant to be a high level consequence. You got to save that for when your child's going to touch something hot or dangling off of something about to, or about to do something dangerous, like walk into the street. That's when you use yelling. That's why I always say that stern, raised voice is not yelling. If you yell all the time, just like we talked about, what do you sound like? Wah, 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 wah. The kids totally will satiate on that. They will get used to it. It will be your regular voice. So save yelling for when you need it. Because if you don't, when you do need it, it doesn't work. And I have seen that happen with parents. That's one thing I actually didn't do, shockingly enough. My daughter claimed I was yelling all the time. So I took stock and I was like, you know what? I better listen to myself. Maybe I'm a yeller. And I wasn't. She was just being dramatic. She still says it. Like, I'm talking in a normal voice and she'll be like, stop yelling at me. And I'm like, I'm not. I haven't even raised my voice. So, yeah, I'm not a yeller. But probably too, because I know to save it to that time when I really need it in dangerous times. And corporal punishment. Okay. New York State has not banned it. There is no law banning corporal punishment. However, there are laws as to the corporal punishment that you can use. And if you are doing corporal punishment, you can never leave a mark on your child, ever. It is against the law to leave a mark on your child. If I was in your house and I saw you give corporal punishment that left a mark, I would have to call child protection. That's just how it works. You cannot leave a mark on a child. Have I spanked my children? I spanked my daughter literally once. I don't know what happened, but like she was so out of control and she was holding onto my arm and she was dangling off my arm with like one arm and like swinging around. Like, have you ever seen the Tasmanian devil in the cartoons? And I didn't know what to do. And just to make a point and get her out of it, one time on the diaper, and she looked right at me, never had to do it again. And I didn't even do it hard. I did it right on the diaper, but it made a point. Generally speaking, I'm not for any kind of corporal punishment. I'm not for spanking anymore. I was spanked, and that's why I went there. That's why I went to it. But when I started thinking about spanking, I started really thinking about it, and like that can make you feel ashamed and embarrassed. And when you're trying to discipline your child for hitting, and you're hitting your child, what does that say? That leaves that mixed message of, wait, they can hit me, but I can't hit anybody else. Any kind of corporal punishment, they can tell me to not do it, but they can do it. What? Like, no, it creates that mixed message. I also have parents who tell me, oh, well, when they bite me, I bite them back. When they hit me, I hit them back. No. You are the adult. I understand that you're trying to make an example, but just don't do it. Just don't do it. Please don't do it. Again, you're creating that mixed message. I'm not supposed to hurt my mom, but she's hurting me. Also, I think we talked about, when back in the day, I don't know if they still say this, but my mom and dad used to say, I'll give you something to cry about if you don't stop crying. Okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. So anyway, I just yeah, I don't do that either. I want to make sure if you are using corporal punishment, you need to look up the laws for your state. You can find them right online. I've looked them up several times to make sure that families that I was seeing were disciplining properly. Because I'm a mandated reporter, and it's my job to report anything that I see that goes beyond the law. So I want you to definitely look that up. Okay, last thing I'm going to tell you about consequences is, what did we talk about? Behaviors generally take 2, sometimes up to 6 weeks to change, and that's if you're doing it every single time. So pick one behavior that's your worst behavior that you want to target first and do the consequences every single time they do it. So if it's hitting and your consequence is giving them a timeout, they have to have that timeout every single time they hit. You cannot miss a time, or your 2 to 6 weeks starts all the way over again. Even if you've gotten to 4 weeks and you've made a little progress and you forget, or you're just tired, I get that. I totally get that, but you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Meaning it's all going to start over again. That you've just given them the signal that, oh, she's tired and she didn't say anything. Okay, when she's tired, I'm going to keep hitting her. So please, please, please follow that, please. And remember, behaviors get worse before they get better, especially when you add in consequences, because you are pushing your child in a way that you haven't pushed them before. So guess what they're going to do to you? They're going to push back. So I just want you to know that. So behaviors get worse before they get better. So you'll see that peak, but eventually it will peak and it will go down. So, and if it doesn't, after, the 6 weeks, we scrap it and we start again and we pick something else out. So I hope this was helpful for you today. I do believe in consequences, and I know that that's controversial today, and I'm okay with that. I just believe in them. I'm a classic behaviorist. So, I hope I've given you some more tools in your toolbox. For whatever reason, we talk about behaviors in a toolbox. So now you've got some really good consequences for your toolbox. But remember, start at the lowest level always, which is no, and work up. If you start at the highest level, you have nowhere to go. So always just start with the no and see how it goes. All right. Text me, leave me comments, whatever you're thinking, if you have questions, so I can clarify things. Other than that, that is consequences in a nutshell, as my owner of SLC would say. She's my best friend too, which, how cool is that? I get to work for my best friend, but everything with her is in a nutshell. So this is in a nutshell, consequences. So if you need me, reach out. Like I said, I'm here. What else am I doing? I found out I might be going back to the office for 4 hours a week. But not seeing kids. But yeah, so you know where I am, so reach out. All right. Everybody remember, no bad children, only bad choices. Help your child make the right choices, and that'll last for the rest of their lives. All right, everybody, I'm here for you. I'm your cheerleader. You can do this. All right. I'll talk to you soon.